The largest deal of my career took a full year from first meeting to sign contract and 3 full months of negotiations. Today, I'm going to break down the tips that helped my team and I get this 7-figure deal over the line. My name is Brandon, and welcome to the Sales Armory. Before we dive into the tips, let me give a little backstory and context on this deal. I have to be mindful of what I do and don't say. However, this was a large multi-location deal. It involved over 400 locations across the US. It was a 7-figure deal, and my negotiating partner from the other company was the former global head of supply chain for one of the largest fashion houses based in Paris. Can't say anything more than that, but I think that's pretty cool. This deal, being that it impacted so many potential locations, it was such a high value deal. Obviously, it has a lot of complexities. There's a lot of terms to be negotiated on, all the way from price, when payment is due, contract length. Basically, every potential part of this deal was on the table for negotiations. We had multiple back and forths. Negotiations lasted about 3 months, and really we were trying to find common ground. Obviously, they want best price and highest service. We are a for-profit company and cannot give everything away, and so you have to be able to meet somewhere in the middle. All right, so with that little bit of backstory, let's get into a couple tips here. Tip number 1 is play the long game. Deals like these, large deals or deals that have a lot of scale, oftentimes are not going to be one call close deals. They're going to be a series of micro negotiations as each term or each point gets settled. And as you do that, buyer confidence and our own confidence increased as we got more and more excited. These points are getting settled. We actually feel like we're going to get this thing closed. We're creating win-win situations. But patience and persistence became key. I remember during the negotiating process, one of my team members was getting frustrated after we'd get off calls because we might have gone into that call needing to settle 5 terms, and maybe we only got 1 settled. And he was in the mindset like, oh, we needed to get these 5 terms settled and we only got 1. That was a bad call. And I had to try and reframe that thought process, because it is true, maybe we didn't get all 5 settled and maybe we have 4 more, but at the same point in time we got 1, and that small success is going to be what compounds. The other good thing is that as we knock out these terms, even if it's only 1 at a time, even if it's taking multiple calls, our buyer is still engaged. Our buyer still wants to get this deal done. And the more that we can collaborate and the more that we can knock these out and create win-win situations where the buyer feels comfortable, the higher likelihood that we're going to get this deal as a whole over the line. Tip number 2, control the frame. Every call, we had to be diligent about keeping that conversation on a track that we wanted to be on. As we're looking at the cost of different medications that we sell and negotiating on dollars and cents, you can become one-track focus on the dollars and the cents. And what we had to do oftentimes was pull out of that line of thought and tie back or reframe back to the value that we're providing overall. Yes, we are talking about getting them better pricing on medications that they can purchase from us, but the real value is being able to access those medications at all. And so while our buyer wants to get in the weeds and get the best price, we needed to control the conversation about the value of having access to those medications and having access to these categories at all. Think about it like this. Imagine that you're at a music festival and you're hungry. Does it matter how much the food is? Probably not. If you're hungry, there are not a lot of options, and so you're going to eat anyway. And it's kind of like that. You can get so linear focused on price, but at the end of the day, in that situation, price isn't the most important thing. It's the value of being able to eat. My last tip is do not be afraid to lose the deal. I'm going to repeat this. Do not be afraid to lose the deal. There's a way to respectfully walk away from a deal. Obviously, you don't want to burn any bridges. But in any selling situation, if the buyer senses that you need this deal or they sense weakness, they will be more inclined to ask for even more. And you might find yourself on the back foot. Large deals do require a little bit of a backbone. There are so many terms to be negotiated down that you have to be able to stand your ground on the ones that you do and do not have flexibility on, or to the point where you don't have any more flexibility. Sometimes having the nerve to walk away from the deal will actually show strength, and it can reset the leverage. There were 2 calls that we had with this buyer where it was going south. The buyer was asking for more than what we could realistically facilitate. And at the end of the call, I ended both of these calls basically the same way, saying, look, I'm going to go back to my team and see what we can do. But right now, with what you're giving me, I'm not super confident. It's possible that we might just not be able to make anything work here. I don't want to waste your time. I'm going to get back to you in a couple days once the team has been able to look at this. But just so you know, we might not be able to make this happen. And left it at that. Now remember, my buyer on the other side was the former head of global supply chain for a very large fashion house in Paris. It was a different negotiating culture than what I was used to. She was very direct, very to the point, had no problem telling me exactly what wasn't going to work, what might work, what she was happy with, what she was unhappy with, very frank. And I genuinely believe those calls that we got off where I told her, look, I don't think we're going to make this happen. I'll ask, but I think this might be the end of the line for these conversations. I think she respected. And toward the end of the deal, like the last couple calls, they were far more friendly and far more warm. Not warm by American standards, but warm by where we started than the first couple of calls. And I attribute that to us holding our ground. So in conclusion, the 3 tips that helped us get this 7-figure deal over the line were playing the long game, controlling the frame, and not being afraid to lose the deal. If you want to get better at negotiating, not just closing, but negotiating, start practicing these tips now and see what kind of difference it makes in your sales career. My name is Brandon. Subscribe to the Sales Armory. See you next time.